Tech ambiguity, part 2. Here's the meat and the potatoes. Here's where the government and the tech world completely has it wrong, and here's where I've been left vulnerable. Here's where Section 230 really needs to step it up and make a change. First of all, the government needs to give a completely different entire perspective as to how these companies work in order to make Section 230 work right. First things first, we need to concentrate on DMs. See, whether it's psychological or physical data, the biggest threat is not the algorithm itself. The biggest threat is contacting people through the DMs with the exposure to certain algorithms. So for instance, if I trigger an algorithm on myself, whether I'm a kid or an adult, whether I gained access to an adult device as a kid or not, whether it's true or not, parental guidance or not, it happens. So the biggest thing is monitoring the DMs. Now, the biggest problem is that in order to stop this issue, the data needs to be tracked with AI. And this is beyond a profitable perspective. This is where the government has it wrong. The data needs to be profitable, otherwise the data is worth nothing. If my data is not traded to give us advertising and if our data is not sold and traded, it's not protected. There's no one with a budget anywhere to protect our data. Housing our data on a server doesn't protect it. That's the misconception of the tech ambiguity, is that somehow our data can be completely privatized and we can be public all at the same time with it. It's impossible to walk down the street and be absolutely invisible. There's no such thing as, there's no product that can make a human being invisible in public, no matter where you go in the world. So it is erroneous and asinine for the government to be able to ask TikTok to protect us from this when our own laws are actually protecting the hackers and the fraudulent activity from being able to be stopped, because TikTok and all these platforms cannot use the proper technology in place. This is where facial scanning, character mapping, keystroke identifiers, all of these things need to be collected as they are and improved even more so. So instead of hiding the data and allowing only the criminals to gain access, instead, if we're all mapped and tracked by what we're doing, we're more free. Because AI programs can obviously track a child versus a human, whether they are manipulating the code or the algorithm or the app, because literally that's actually impossible. It just takes AI to do. So the very protections the American government is trying to give us, some that I'm pushing for, well, at the same time, the ambiguity is that our data needs to be known. This is with transparency and inclusion. Our personal information, like our address, our credit cards, that kind of thing doesn't need to be public. But if we're choosing to use these platforms, we're going to have to spend money with it and make money with it. Secondly, beyond the money, we need to verify who we are. And a piece of paper and an ID is not verification. The biggest failed part of the government system is the Department of Motor Vehicles in every state all across America. For example, none of these departments are connected together by the internet. So one office doesn't license the same as another. This is a big problem. It causes long lines, it causes waits, and most importantly, it causes fraud to be very easy. And then people get prosecuted for not knowing better when the law could have been upgraded and we could be using systems. Just like with voting. All the problems with voting is because we do not have facial recognition and fingerprint scanning that is connected to the internet. That means exposing our information. At the same time, it also means it can be tracked and protected. And like myself, with my information being forever compromised, this is why I took everything to the fullest. Now, I thought I was going to be destroyed, and it was terrorizing what I was going through. But luckily, by putting myself out here so far, I was able to use my data and all my past searches. Especially, I was able to use the law that was unaware of what was going on, that was inevitably tracking me, which I've been reaching out to for years to try to stop the threats happening to me, and they just kept tracking me instead of going after the threats. And now they're blaming the social media companies. This is where the government has completely had it wrong, and they're hiding what happened to me, especially the people who know what I'm talking about, because that software was on my computer. And I understand certain companies and people want to protect themselves, but you know what? I didn't put you at risk. I was put at risk, and then I kept reaching out for help, and I kept getting ignored, and everybody's playing hot potato with liability, and the government's staying confused. So once again, for the government, It's about DMs, which is recruitment, indoctrination, grooming. It's about grooming, indoctrination, recruitment, and fractionation. What happens is a person gets exposed to harmful content because another individual put it there using the entire system of the way it's set up as it should be, because we're free. We're allowed to interact. Just like someone can walk up on the street and say something completely heinous and inappropriate, and you can't make them not say it. All we can do is choose to not be around a person who says things that are inappropriate in public. Same with social media. Now, it can be filtered out by certain algorithms, but unfortunately, those algorithms cannot exist if our data is overprotected to where only criminals can manipulate it. So the privatization of some of our data is the manipulation and the vulnerability, and of course, the biggest threat to national security on top of it. So now here's what happens, because here's what I've experienced. Now, number one, the biggest reason why I'm on these social media platforms beyond my own safety is for two reasons. The second reason, of course, is business, because I want to know how all of this works so I can constantly interact with people, because as a small business owner, I'm going to be interacting with a lot of individuals and smaller entities who are going to be reaching out and using social media to contact me. The second part is to meet people, because I really don't like dating apps. And at the time, years ago especially, I wanted to meet people, and what better way? Now that I'm more versed in it, I know better. However, many people are doing this, and I don't like to meet people for the purposes of just dating them. I actually want to just meet people, and then if something happens, great. So there's the personal reason, right? So I interact with DMs. If it's not for something fun or something business, interact with DMs to meet people. And here's what happens, is we get subjected to some information that we trigger on our own. So I will trigger information by the algorithm as it's supposed to work. And then as an adult on an adult account, it will come through. Now, because the federal government protects us and our privatization of information, unfortunately, TikTok and Facebook and other groups who want to implement the right methods of protection, they can't. So there's no way to have facial recognition filter out the kids. So unfortunately, if a kid gets a hold of TikTok, well, this is where the government is erroneous in blaming TikTok, and they need to work with TikTok on this. And this is where we need some of the technology that China is using. And if we used it, China would probably have TikTok. You got to remember, China's not allowing TikTok into China because of our laws. No offense, that's ambiguous. That's making TikTok have these problems and why people like myself and others get attacked. Thank you. Now you're listening. So when it comes to being exposed to this bad information, here's what happens at first, is we see it. And then if it's a part of something that we're triggered by, psychologically, especially spiritually, the indoctrination, the recruitment, whether right or wrong, this is where people are blindly recruited. So like the insurrection, a lot of these mass shootings, and a lot of these people committing suicide, doing all these horrible, horrible things. Well, of course, they're identifying with it all. But it goes deeper than just seeing the information. It also goes into the direct messaging, the DM world. Now, this is where the focus really needs to be, and this is where the bots need to be. And I'll explain the layer of checks and balances that part of the ambiguity is my fault. So first things first. Now with the DMs, in my experience, it would always be an account that had some type of information that triggered me in some way that I know would trigger others. So a lot of the very inappropriate posts that do get flagged and removed, well, as more and more of this gets better, some of those that are bad, like people targeting other people especially, there will be some type of interaction within a DM that will solidify the deal. And now a person, all of a sudden, they're fractionated. They're pulled in, psychologically pulled in. There's nothing an algorithm can do. There's nothing the government can do. There's nothing anybody can do at this point. Now, the worst part, of course, is when this happens to kids. And that's why I'm here, because if it can happen to me, it can happen to kids. And I not only want to protect my own company, because I want to know what I'm doing. How do I know it's not a kid posing as an adult and I let them pay me through a Cash App and I get going and oh my God, I got hired to do something by a kid. And now I took their money, and then people think there's something wrong and something weird and it's like, oh my God, that's really my biggest fear is stuff like that. I'm not going to do anything wrong, but the point is that I think any of you watching, if any of you see this, I'm hoping, especially with the collective and law enforcement and the government, this is what I really, really want to really drive home here. And this is where I think all of you agree with me in full. So that's why we have to change the way this is thought about. So inevitably, either kids don't use social media at all, and you can hide them and shelter them from the world. And we already know that over-sheltering kids forces them to grow up to be just vulnerable to every danger out there in the world. You know, you got to fall down and scrape your knee once in a while. Well, you got to get out there. And so the only way to protect them is with facial recognition and mapping, especially in the 21st century. Now, whether the data is stored on American servers or not, this is where it almost doesn't matter. This is short term, because the data storage is not as important as the usage of it through multi-platform methods. So for instance, it's not all TikTok or all Facebook on one particular computer serving everybody, right? We're talking about all different kinds of companies involved, all different kinds of things involved, just like a PC computer. It may have a particular name on the outside, even an Apple, but in the end, inside that box is many different forms of technologies that are bought and paid for to work together. So there's all kinds of trademarks and laws and roadblocks working together. Well, this all comes back into the DM situation and how I kind of want to paint this picture, because with the DMs, as you get pulled in to the information, then of course the DM reaches out. Now for me, it was mostly DMs that posed to be foreign terrorism, fake accounts, and unfortunately, during the last administration, Turning Point USA. It was relentless. Now, everybody else, I see you, by the way. All your fake accounts. I can tell who's media. I can tell who's law enforcement. I can tell who's an individual. I can tell who knows me. I can tell who doesn't. The rest is the most powerful note. Always remember that. So with these DMs, it comes down to a fractionation. It comes down to being pulled in, being talked to, and then feeling like, oh, I'm in a secret little world. I'm special, right? That's how recruitment starts. It psychologically fractionates a person. It draws them away from their world. And then it starts to fractionate their ideas and ideologies into what they're seeing. And the real trick in the art to this deception that is the most wicked of all is that even the dangerous media itself doesn't even actually have to be connected. People will come through, or whether it's a bot or a bad actor, they will come through the DMs and make you believe that some media is a part of what they're talking about and it's not. Or they'll just simply have a conversation with you knowing that psychologically you'll be triggered by all the things you just talked about, by all this other information. So this is how the government cannot regulate, nor TikTok can't regulate the algorithms in the way the government wants to. It can't be done in a bias. But what can be done is kids can be filtered out with AI, first and foremost. Secondly, the more our identity is logged. For example, I'm Timothy M. Howard Jr., born 1975. A year ago, I couldn't say that without being in danger. Now, I'm protecting myself even more by saying it. I just don't need to give my home address and that kind of thing, because if you can't look me up and find me, well, that means you're outside of certain servers and firewalls. There's methods and pathways to everything. So that is the number one thing there. And by my data being spread across these servers and sold, that means that it's so known across servers that are protected. If I even show up on the dark web, well, the security I pay for is going to find it immediately. And then if we use a lot of the data trackers in the technology, well, as much as it seems like it's hindering our freedom, inevitably, like what they're using in China, without giving any credit to the CCP, without pointing any finger to the CCP, we would have the same protection. And then, for instance, if your kid, anybody watching, is out there, just like my family, I'm worried about the same thing. I don't want my nieces and nephews to have their data subjected to the dark web or terrorist ideologies because it's not being sold and traded. So as the government's expecting it to be privatized, that means, just like, unfortunately, certain bad gun laws, the kids' data is wide open only to criminals who can access it or who can target a person. And that's the worst thing. And then the government can't track it because it's being privatized and hidden. So it's literally being protected for the criminals to subjugate. And this is where the government, once again, the perspective of the way at least the hearing on the TikTok is, that contrast is, the government thinks that because of the way the law is set up, that data can somehow be isolated and there can be a linear streamlined method, and it can be compared to broadcast television. So I hope this, again, resheds the light on how that's completely impossible, because social media is using the streets of and the highways of the internet. So they don't own it all. It's just a protocol that a cloud is attaching to, and that's why it is an industry issue. That's why every platform has these issues, and that's why this is my concern. And if I don't see these areas fixed, well, as I'm out selling my company, I will stay vulnerable. And then two, I got to still make sure that with public opinion, aside from my own pursuit to be a public person as always, with media and artistry and everything that I do, well, also I want to make sure people understand where I'm at. I don't want my data stolen. I don't want a deep fake of me. And worst of all, I do not want the government continuously hiding me, or the government coming after me on the ambiguity I'm creating as well, because I'm just as scared of all this stuff developing into the wrong direction. And so, of course, I feel great that the contrast now is wide open on how the CCP is both involved and entangled, and how also the technology, no matter what, to be global, we can't get rid of it. And there's also a window of opportunity here. See, now that the cat is out of the bag, now that we've been mapped for over 20 years, it's not like we could just turn it off and it goes away. All that can happen now, especially when it comes to the American government, the only thing that can happen is we can isolate ourselves even further, and then we'll just lose the global economy altogether, and we'll go bankrupt over that, and then BRICS will win. And then we really will lose everything. So this is the wrong way to go. If we can stay intertwined the way we are, we can just release more AI, and once again, I love my data being tracked. I allow it to be spread because that means I get, number one, the best advertising possible. I do not see media I don't want to see, number one. Number two, if someone tries to steal my data, well, there's a footprint. It's out in the open. The lights are on. There is nothing to hide. So inevitably, if someone tries to steal my data, well, all they're doing is marking themselves. This is what protects the kids in the same sense, and that's what I'm fighting for. If it works for me, it works for them, it works for you, and it doesn't just work for Americans, it works for everybody, and then there's no government oversight, none. It's fully decentralized without hurting, especially the American government. This is where everybody can see everybody, and it's the greatest thing. And once we have this cross-platform of mapping and facial recognition, we're going to see more commerce. We're going to see more of a stabilization of commerce in the tech world. And this is what I want to see, because the more we have this, we truly have a shared interest, especially with China. And as we show these efforts, that means we have to stand true, unfortunately, as with diversity and inclusion. You know, we can't keep instituting political advancements underneath it all psychologically, like some of these unfortunate senators are talking about. Like, they tried to insert the woke ideology terminology into the hearing for TikTok. And that just goes to show, well, that's the same thing in an opposite retrospect to the Chinese government pushing their views. And we can't have any of that, because that, unfortunately, is the remnants of systemic bigotry. And that is what's destroying our laws. And this is what constantly puts Americans in contempt of the world court, which I'm against. I'm making sure that we are standing up to our values, so it works for me, works for you. And the more we stand up to our values, being honest, and this is where the algorithms are working, and we're seeing now a bunch of humans being arrogant and partial to their beliefs and their own mindsets and ideologies, which systemically worked in the past, but now, thanks to technology, the panel almost looks ridiculous in the hearing, because it's such an ambiguous form of prosecution, even though I'm so glad the government is taking it all at the same time, because we have to get past this form of misunderstanding with the ambiguity of government and tech. So I'm glad the American government is not, as an entirety, I'm glad the American government is not corrupt. I'm just glad that these are now the remainders of systemic ideologies of people in government that are still allowed to push with executive privilege, unfortunately. time and time again, and you can see it in the grilling of the prosecutions. At the same time, they got to protect the kids, so I got to give credit to both sides, regardless of what they do not understand. One thing is for sure, they're coming together to make sure that people are protected. So I want all my information that's been collected, especially that was scrubbed, to be used as evidence in all of this. Because as I thought I was just dealing with hackers early on, I thought it was just people and pranks, and then it turned into getting, once again, phone calls, and I heard Asian-speaking people. I don't know which country it's from. So now that this happened with TikTok, I'm seeing all the identifiers of the things I went through that terrified me. And look at how Alex Jones and everybody else was able to collect my data. Look at how it was reconstituted. Look at how the bots that were unknown to the public then, I didn't even know what I was controlling and talking to half the time. I thought I was talking to a computer. I've always interacted as if there was some magical computer and being all at the same time with people, because that's really what it felt like. Well, no wonder why it felt like that. No wonder why I was having these dreams and these assessments were happening. No wonder why, because this is the reality of what I didn't understand and how terrorizing it is to the brain to do. And if I went through all this and I was having all these interactions with DMs, well, then that's what's been happening to the kids, because all the questions that, regardless of how ambiguous they are, the one thing I'm proud of both sides of the government in the trial or the hearing is the way they asked the questions and how they were dodged. And AI can solve this problem. I also see where TikTok stands, because it's very hard to explain, and I'm a little disappointed in how they didn't prepare their defense at all. Pretty bad. But I love TikTok. So I've got to be fair here. Otherwise, I just can't take one side over the other on this. I'm here to stop what disrupted my life, because I'm taking time out of my day to do all of this. And this can't be done next week. It can't be done while I'm in a project. It can't be done while I'm working for someone else. I have to fix my company, and I have to fix these security issues, because it will be too late. And I can't be talking about these things out in the field. I have to have it done now. So when it comes to the DMs, all that needs to happen, okay, let's talk about Project Texas for a second. That's a great attempt, but I see where that's still kind of a little ambiguous. It does, okay, even if TikTok pulls all their data off of Singapore servers and brings them here to the U.S., and I know I've been a big advocate of having our data servers here in the U.S. That's only for moat-style protection, to privatize our data, but that only goes so far, and we're too far into technology, especially the rest of the world using technology, that if America, if the government decides, if you decide to get rid of all this, once again, the world will roll us over. We will lose the technological stance in the world, and we will be done forever. We will never recover. AI will out-process us so bad, and we will be isolated moats of servers, and they'll be all connected. We will be the 8-bit computer against the massive AI machine that will never win. And then there'll be an us and them and all that crazy stuff. If we stay integrated, we have shared interests, and as time moves on, and as new generations keep taking over, especially in government, well, they'll work with this technology more, and then it will be the diversity and inclusion of the people all over the world that will eventually end our systemic wars and problems, as it dies off with the ambiguity of belief systems that are built off of untruths to begin with. And we know everybody knows that's true. And that's just the confusion of history not being validated in and of itself. And a lot of that is we're discovering so many truths about history all at the same time, because we're to a point where humans can't lie to each other anymore, thanks to technology, especially AI. So AI is once again the answer, and government cannot have their own AI. And this is, I think, now the biggest detrimental point, is where do we establish the AI? So obviously the AI needs to be established first and foremost by the individual companies. And then, yes, we need AI for the governments as well. Now, how is this all going to work? Because technically this is really now the whole Big Brother thing. And it's kind of a necessary evil. So this is how it should work. When it comes to government AI can be the system of checks and balance to privatized AI. This is where humans cannot tamper with true freedom. Humans cannot tamper with bias because it's dealt by AI. And the only thing the government AI should do is make sure that the private AI is playing by the rules. For myself, I want to be monitored by AI because that is what actually privatizes my data. As my data is being collected by AI, it's also being protected by AI as it's being collected, because then AI has to be breached, which can't be done unless it's by another AI. And if there's AI of the government watching the AI of the companies who are all funded, then that means third party has to try to outfund the government and the entire tech sector, which is virtually, literally impossible. The best they can do is have a breach or two, or have a corrupt form of people within a company allowing it to happen, which AI will catch. So that's why it's important. So as I'm being recorded and traced by AI, well, that means that anybody that tries once again to compromise me, they just simply cannot. So the enemy can see me, my haters can see me, the attackers can see me, they can attempt to find me, but once again, because my data is spread so far, my footprint is available, I'm someone they want to stay away from unless they really, really have a reason to target me, right? Because all they're doing is stepping into a pile of poo-poo they can't get out of. They want to attack someone who privatizes themselves and isolates their lives, like someone who runs to the hills and runs away from society. And those are the people who are the most easily attacked, because then people go attack them and no one knows anything happens to them because they're way out in the middle of nowhere and no one knows anything about them. So that's the difference. And once we have government AI watching the corporate AI, the ambiguity of the government trying to come down on these platforms to stop multi-platform technologies from working, which are of global standards, if the government takes this focus over isolating data, then we will be able to move forward and not go backward. And last but not least, if we embrace facial recognition, characterization recognition, the very things that create the AI and the deep fakes that can happen that are treacherous, this is also immediately what maps in real time what cannot be reproduced. So just like how the one person who can mimic Tom Cruise, well, that person who mimics Tom Cruise actually can't commit a crime acting like Tom Cruise because of the AI. It would be so obvious that person did it. So it almost solidifies the fact that it can only remain entertainment, so it's already naturally protected. It doesn't matter if the CCP can see it. It doesn't matter who can see it. You can't do anything bad with it because there's no way to get away with fraudulently manipulating the data. And if we institute this, well, this could possibly get TikTok into China as well, and then we just have more people cross-platforming with people. And then more atrocities can actually be exposed and then pulled. The algorithms can work even better because now we have all technologies in the world working together with less government oversight. And it's just a matter of government bots making sure the corporate bots do their job. And that's where jobs are needed for humans, because it will take teams of humans to oversee these bots. And as long as we do this, then a non-linear approach that can be achievable in a very short amount of efficient time will be achievable. Otherwise, we will try to privatize the information further, and the only thing that will happen is kids will gain access to privatized devices, and they will become vulnerable to only those who actually can see them, who are the criminals, because they will be protected by our laws, who privatize their information to where no one can stop the criminal from hijacking them in the first place, because the facial recognition technology doesn't work. Just like with our voting, I want to be able to show up and scan my face and my finger and know that Tim Howard Jr. voted. And there is no discrepancy of who voted, because anybody can manipulate a piece of pen and paper, because a group of people can decide what that piece of paper is, if it's valid or not. Human beings can be wicked and erroneous. So that's why we need this technology, especially for voting. And if we had this, well, we would have known that Mr. Biden wouldn't free and clear anyway, which we do. But look at all the deniers we had. And look at all the election denial we had over the technology. Look at how I still don't even get known for what I've done. And the reason why I'm making it known is, I did change the election. I did the burn card campaign. I used this exact technology that was terrorizing me. And I didn't know it was bots fully, but I thought it was. Well, it obviously worked, didn't it? And do I have a piece of leaked information? No. It's because I was terrorized by this, and I learned how it worked, and I reverse engineered it as whatever this entity that was trying to blame it all on Russia in the beginning, and somehow blame it all on George Soros. And there's your red flag laws that I came up with, and then OSHA mandates, because no one is going to lie about COVID and use social media about it, and then attempt to kill thousands of American soldiers with it, thousands of American civilians, in such a fast amount of time that it would have been too late to recover. And the only way to know, to have the data on that, is to have the accident. So I stopped it before the accident and look at all the people that are benefiting and calling me a moron. Fine. Look at now, here's the only downside here. I want to kind of talk about COVID and social media and everything. The nanites. Look at the disturbing information, the disinformation about little robots, micro robots inside of the vaccination, when it's a form of colloidal. Now, I begged for the pharmaceutical company to not release the formula for the vaccine, because I didn't want people and individuals making their own versions of it and being snake oil salespeople, because it partially works, or they're making it with what they think are better metals and materials, because supposedly aluminum is in the vaccine. And to my friend out there, I've heard it from more than you. I'm not just saying that, so don't worry. There's a few people have said that. And then people have said there are nanites in the vaccine. Well, these nanites, it's colloidal. It's colloidal. I'll argue that all day long. If you shine a laser through it, the little sparklies, well, it's the same as making colloidal. And colloidal is what also stops fungal, viral, all these things. But the reason why I wanted the vaccine is because I didn't want bathtub vaccination. I don't want vaccinations created by somebody who just kind of knows what they're doing. I wanted my vaccination from a lab, from the people who have billions of dollars to make it. And I wanted it available to all of us so we could stop the threat before it took us over too fast. Because with the data I have, which some like to say I'm making up, which is fully true, which is what's going to happen on the next wave. And that's why I've been so forward about this. And this has to do with the tech problem all at the same time, and the social media bit, all the disinformation. Now, as a healthcare worker and a person who's been fighting a lot of these issues on my own with health issues on top of it, and studying disease and everything, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be a doctor. I just have to know a little bit of how it works, like a lot of you. And with SARS-CoV-2 models, it was simple. So with COVID, I wanted to make sure that obviously enough people didn't die fast enough. I covered that. I'm getting emotional again because it does bother me. So these little, I wanted to make sure that we were funded. And had these things not happened, people can blame China all they want. So whether it was purposely released or not, the fact is, I didn't know either, right? All I did know was that it came from Wuhan. So all I know about viruses and diseases is that, well, whoever is the first exposed to it is the first to get over it. And with what was happening, once again, now with the drone hitting Syria, that's proof, again, I didn't make anything up. There's proof that I was talking about us getting attacked from Syria. If our soldiers stayed in the desert and we went after Iran, like after Soleimani, like we were supposed to do, which somebody was ordering stupid things, they were having Trump do stupid things, well, that was us relying on Putin. And once again, there's my proof of Syria being the bridge of all this issue. So that puts China potentially having to use it as a weapon, or somebody pinning it on China. Either way, it put them in the middle of it, which inevitably causes the insertion of chemical weapons or the most dangerous versions of COVID at the time, especially like how Trump talked about and the others, how bad it was. Once again, there's my proof. So that inevitably has to do with why I fought for these OSHA mandates and why I did this stuff for COVID, because it comes down to now the tech aspect. And look at, so while a lot of people are running around acting like it's fake and nothing happened, you're all benefiting from, you're welcome. You're welcome while I look like a moron. You're welcome. Because all of you out there who think I'm a moron, who are in COVID denial, you just experienced the flu or you experienced a variant of COVID that isn't incredibly, horribly dangerous, that it's already evolved and it's not a static disease. So I know that the general public doesn't understand that, and I can't explain that to the general public right away, especially when people are in denial and they think that with Muslim fear that masks are somehow a form of control and it doesn't work. When it's a form of air compression, it actually does work, and you're supposed to get some of it come through. The vaccines do work. It's colloidal and other stuff together, working together. They have their own patents on it. I wish that when it comes to the nanite situation, that the pharmaceutical company and the government would work together with social media to say that, hey, maybe you don't have to give away the whole recipe, but you can at least say that some of these things are in here, and there's a lot of self-made healers and producers and farmers that think they can make this stuff on their own. Some can. I've used homemade colloidal. It's helped me quite a bit. But of course, it cannot be made like it can be made in a multi-billion-dollar lab, especially with all the tests on the pre-designs of the vaccine, which is why it rolled out and worked so fast, and it's amazing that it did. So it's the nanites, these little robots, and they don't exist. They can, but I challenge everybody, look it up for yourself, and I wish the pharmaceutical company would release some of this information, and I can put it to rest, because the only thing I didn't know that was going to truly be true was Hunter Biden's laptop and his hard drive. I really, really thought there would be no way. I thought that someone else turned his computer in. No wonder I had to look on his face. He said, "Sorry, Hunter, I wasn't trying to bash you." But either way, that information on that hard drive was still used as disinformation. That was Russian propaganda all the way around, and it was to set up Zelensky, and it was to weaken the Ukraine in the eyes of Russia so that way Trump would support Putin. Once again, all of that was still a plot of terrorism, and that's why I said what I said. And from the information I had, especially at the time, I was very spot on, because it was very difficult to believe that all that was true. At least we know now that it was used for a bad cause, and unfortunately a lot of that information was true, but that doesn't mean that Joe Biden committed a bunch of crimes either. So anyway, that's all out of my hands. But I hope this ties everything together. Glad to see everything's still working. Maybe I'm filtered out. Who cares? Who knows? All I know is this is what has cost me a lot of time and money, a lot of brain cells, and what I was being told was insane or not true is now completely true and proven by AI. If the rest of you want to live in denial, so be it. At least for me, I have the truth of everything, even as horrible as the truth is about it. It's as disturbing as it is relieving. But I would rather know the real truth and move forward than try to continue to live blind and live in denial. That's by far more dangerous and less productive anyway. God bless America. God bless the world. Coexist. Let's move forward in a more integrated cross-platform fashion. Let's protect our data by making our footprint solid and trading the data responsibly, so that way there is a team of people constantly funded to protect data in the first place. And last but not least, if we're choosing to use social media, only our imminent information, like our bank accounts, our credit cards, our address, that should be protected. But if I choose to give up my name, my phone number, everything, and who I am, well, other than the protections I pay for with security like anybody else, to have the bots work within reason, I'm putting myself out here. Now, I'm glad the spam filters are working, so all that needs to continue. So once again, the more I push my footprint, the stronger the spam filters get, and the better they work. So it's incredible how well that's working. What used to be a perforated bag of nothing is now securing me better than ever before. And then I hear it mess with my mother's devices and my father's and other people's, and I see it less and less and less. So as the data spans out, it will keep working. So once again, we need data tracking and sales to do this. And with this transparency and inclusion, it will ultimately protect the data. And then in turn, if the government takes more of this approach, then this will in turn, what the government is scared of will actually become what the government wants, which is knowing that what's actually protecting a lot of people in China, well, that technology can be protecting us as well. And our data can be once again protected by AI and those servers, because if anyone tries to steal it, they're only hurting themselves. Instead of trying to privatize our data like a piece of gold that can only be stolen by a criminal, and then the worst of the worst keeps happening, the kids keep getting set up. And the reason why the kids are the targets is, remember, they have the least amount of footprints. The longer you've been on this planet, the longer you've been interacting with people, the more valuable you are to a hacker, to a fraudulent person, or a terrorist that wants to use your data to gain something, especially someone within the actual region we're in, within the firewall itself. Most of the problem is within the firewall. A lot of these problems are Americans pretending to be people overseas bouncing off of servers. They're already in. The threat comes from within. So you're worried about the CCP. Be worried about that first and foremost. That's by the people inside who are pretending to be and act like the CCP to scare you into not letting us have these technological advances, thinking they're protecting our freedom. They're destroying it. Like the people who say, you cannot use my picture. I'm on Facebook. I don't give you the right to use my picture, my kind, my likeness. No one has the right to say that, number one. They're using a public platform. That's like walking down the street and saying, don't look at me. You can't see me. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Stay in your house then. So to all my family and friends who are pushing that ridiculousness, I love you. You're actually fighting for the things that are destroying you. By these platforms being able to use your picture, use my data, use my face, map me, put it in, use it, sell it, trade it, please do. That means you can catch it on the dark web, you can protect my information. If someone steals it, you're going to map it right away. Fraud detection is going to protect me. That means my credit card companies don't have to do anything because the AI is already working so well. Do not isolate the tokenizations per platform. Do not isolate and privatize to the point of making data only accessible to criminals. That is the only thing that needs to be known. And then we can have anything we want anywhere in the world. We already have the money problem solved. We also need global interaction with all governments on board. Because the only way to save the dollar in every region is to allow decentralized trading. So that way we can pay our conversions per region. That's why this 15% global minimum tax is so important. Hopefully it drops down to 5%. Personally, I think we should start there. Why go straight to 15? It pays for it, but we should at least start somewhere. Hate me for saying that, but hey, we got to be responsible somewhere, right? Either way, okay, well, things are working. That's all that matters, and I love you for that. I hope this makes a lot of sense, and I hope you can all see how I've grown in as much, because by having the lights turned on to all this truth to what is happening underneath it all, well, it gives me a lot of sense of self-worth and value, knowing that I'm making headway and it is working. So in turn, in closing, the best form of mental healing from a lot of people are also affected by the technology and by overwhelmed sense of reality. You know, we have a lot of what we normally ignore in life all of a sudden being presented and being brought to the conscious part of the mind. The best thing that ever happened was global interaction. I mean, I'm talking to people all over the world that I never thought I would. And I didn't know how far my writings would go. I didn't know who my personality would appeal to. And it really helped me find myself as a person even more so. So this journey to stop, you know, this terrorism and hacking and stuff has led me to meeting people above and beyond in scenarios that you can't pay for. I mean, I'm really experiencing them. And to the person who's watching right now, I've been thinking about calling you so much, all the time. I won't say too much, but in a personal note, I love what you just got to do anyway. So this is the final video on the DMs and the perspective the government needs to take, especially from how I was hit. And if the government realizes that it's really the ability to monitor who gets pulled into a DM and the interaction that's happening from witnessing a certain point of data, once AI can map that, and there's a system of checks and balances with third-party AI, both government, third-party, and platform AI, well, then there's no way for human error to be involved, and then those communications can be intercepted, and immediately from law enforcement to platform, it will be automatically tracked if it's a kid or not, if a crime is happening or not, if someone's being fractionated or not. And if the psychology is put into this part of Section 230, our freedoms are more enhanced because we're not being mapped and tracked out of being able to communicate under a blanket sense. The bots are looking for fraudulent activity, and then of course humans are not interacting until it's flagged, and that's the protection of our freedoms. So we're not being monitored by Big Brother. We're being protected by our data using the platforms we're choosing to use, and if someone fractionates us into something, which is what I went through, and what a lot of these kids are going through especially, which is why I'm concerned, then they cannot be recruited, they cannot be indoctrinated, they cannot be groomed without it being tracked, and then intervention can come immediately and intervene. And so instead of limiting a kid's time on social media, which is a very, very ineffective tool, instead it will instantly be intercepted that whether a kid got a device that's their own, used someone else's, and they bypassed all the controls, it will not matter. It's the fact that the AI is going to know that, hey, there's a person being fractionated, they're interacting with a DM from some media that they've seen, which means instantly, well, that's the first sign of fraud and crime. What happens in the main streets? Take New York City, right? You're walking down the street and you interact with some people, and then eventually they pull you into something, you start talking, and then boom, you're in an alley. They got you. That's how these DMs are working. They psychologically pull you in, and then boom, you're interacting with someone, and then you feel important and empowered, right? So once again, this cannot be tracked and traced due to our current old systemic form of law blocking the ability for certain forms of AI technology to work, which is why TikTok is not in China, because we can't use the tracking tools that the Chinese government uses. We can't even use our own form of it legally. And then here we are now with living out an insurrection because all of the supposed deep state tracking, which was this AI tracking and all this stuff that was done underneath the surface, which I was able to control. You guys almost arrested me for treason, and I won, because this is what was terrifying me, and this is what I flipped around, was this. I just didn't really think it was going to work. But at least when the red flags came in and that hospital ship went to New York, and that was the 5th red flag, and the guy was going to drive the train into the ship, and I mentioned that on my 5 red flags, which is, you guys mentioned the red flags today. I love you for that. Those who know who I'm talking to. And then all the disinformation about George Soros, the vaccinations, and then watching the people I knew interacting with online, thinking that it was religious-based, or worse, it had to do with astrology. And then all of that was triggering all this disinformation, and then it was a snowball effect. And of course, I had all that information, then I keep talking about that, like with the Luciferian conspiracy being jumped in the alley in New York, and then the interviews with my grandfather, my uncle, my other grandfather, and then the college projects I had to do. And of course, being hacked as TJX Productions, and then last but not least, having the CCP codec for PCDJ Karaoke, which was the very first and foremost piece that, because it was a remnant on some of my computers, then going and doing extra jobs, I know it caused all kinds of problems. Just like the tablet I have that I have to replace with an iPad that I'm 2 years into not even being able to use, because in the end, it just triggers servers, it messes up no matter what it does. So just like Ultra Chromecast, which I also caught hacking my networks, these are the devices that were hacking my networks. Well, that also infects my good computers. It infects everything that I have. So what about everybody else who's been going through this? So for me, it's a great day because the lights are now on, the contrast is available, and my data is now able to be admissible. And that's the most important thing for me, because as things continue to work for me, I have to make sure I finish this mission, because I cannot allow myself to just get scrubbed, things to work for me, and then turn around and this happens all over to other people again. That's the worst thing. Or even worse, moreover, no one knows what I did at all, and I hit it, and now my life is great, and then all of a sudden, boom, someone else pretends to be me. The world believes that everything I did is the work of someone else, and then it gets used against me twice over, and then I'm eliminated so something else can be carried out. That is the worst of the worst. So it's going to take AI. It's going to take the genie that's already out of the bottle to now fix the problem. And that's the last reason why I keep talking about all this diversity and inclusion stuff, because if our laws are not fully executed correctly in the future with writing these types of protections into law, then the bias is going to find us in contempt of being able to enforce the law, which is what's happening now. Once again, the TikTok hearing, look at how ambiguous and ridiculous it is. I'm glad the government's talking about the things I asked along with TikTok, but at the same time, it's so ridiculous because the government does not even understand how tech works. So the government can't ask TikTok to break the law, to enforce the law, and it behooves me that the senators don't know what they're talking about, and they're actually asking to literally break the law, to enforce it. It's blowing my mind. Watch the hearing. Literally watch the hearing. There's too much bias involved, and right away, no wonder why TikTok is not in China. And as a person who supports the American government over the Chinese government, this is where, just like before what I said with Russia, they're saying, okay, come to Papa. They don't have to do much. Same with the Chinese. They don't have to do much. The CCP can sit there and go, okay, screw yourselves. You're literally giving the ability to be hijacked, and the government doesn't even have to do it in China. It can just be rogue entities in China that are more hardcore than the government themselves. We see this influencing our own government. It's even worse in autocratic nations where mob rule runs the government. So, with all due respect, that's what I'm trained to believe. So if we use these tools now, well, we're forcing shared interests on a technological level that can't be corrupted because it's a global standard. And as a global standard, when we have AI and a global standard, for instance, America, China, every other country, we can have our own security bots that monitor the global bots. And each nation of bots monitoring these global platforms will automatically detect if criminal activity is happening in an industry. And then each country, just like with not NATO, what's the other one? Why am I forgetting it? The league, I want to call it the League of Nations. I'm blanking out, but anyway, whether it's the World Court or NATO or any of these places, where am I going with this? I'm starting to think of all kinds of things. Just as like in the World Court or in the Supreme Court for that matter, where issues can be brought up, well, in any region, any single government will be able to detect this type of behavior, and then because we're on a global standard, it can be brought to the global community, and then, of course, the platforms can address it. But once again, the roadblock is here with the very laws that protect our data to try to privatize it are the same laws that are not allowing our data to be traded and sold in the way it should be, so it can be protected from ending up on the dark web and sold and traded the way it should not be. So right now, currently, our data is only subjected to being hijacked and fraudulently traded and sold and passed across the dark web, because if it's not allowed to be traded through sales, if that's constantly being diminished, then there's no reason for our data to be valuable. It's just fuel for the fire of being reconstituted by nefarious methods. But if our data is traded and sold, then it's protected on servers that are funded, because there's a reason to fund them. So there's a reason to protect them. And then once again, our data is creating a more solid footprint to where if someone tries to steal it or hack it or make a deep fake of it, just like with blockchain and other methods and secure coin, well, no one can steal our data and use it against us without themselves getting caught. So now that I've stated that a million times over, that is the threat. And most importantly, it's being fractionated into DMs after being exposed to certain amounts of material online that we're triggering ourselves by the algorithms. So once again, facial recognition, character mapping, which is why I mapped myself. And while some think it's obnoxious, that's why it was obnoxious. Other humans will have obnoxious behavior as well, and that comes out of fear. It comes out of the unknown. It comes out of being in the dark in this whole situation. And I want to make sure that other humans who don't have the training I have, especially who didn't make it through what I made it through so far, they're going to be in a worse position I was in. It was terrifying me. They're going to be in by far worse of a position. And if they don't know about technology, especially really kids who don't know about technology, they're just going to be really subjugated to being indoctrinated into a groomed form of recruitment that their mind will not be able to out-process in time as they keep interacting with someone in a DM, and they think it has to do with the material they're being exposed to. This is what causes people to snap and form ideologies, and then vicarious justification steps in the door, and then we think, oh, we got to solve these issues in the world. We're the only ones that can do it, and that's the worst recruiter of all. And it used to be different in the world. It used to be like one person. It was all isolated. That you, like the Jim Jones or Jordan, whatever his name was, right? The guy who made everybody drink the Kool-Aid. Isn't that where the term drinking the Kool-Aid comes from? And everybody, unfortunately, committed suicide, and they thought that they were committing a great act in the name of God. These are the things that have to be stopped, and only AI, only mapping can do this, because without that technology available, there's no way to monitor in real time every second. There's no way to find out, especially if an innocent person or a kid is using a device and being pulled into one of these situations and it's developing. There's no way to know without AI. And if humans are watching humans at all times, that's not okay. We don't deserve that. And then humans can form opinions of other. I don't want another human watching every single thing I'm doing. I want AI to see what I'm doing, because I want it built by platforms, and I want those platforms monitored by government. So long as they're following antitrust rules, that's where the AI bots stop for the government. It's like the difference between cops and security people. In events, we have security people, and the cops only come in if the security people can't handle it. Until then, the security people got it. And if they break the law, the cops will come and get them, because the security can't break the law. They're not allowed to. And the cops aren't supposed to either. And without AI, there's nothing to stop the security of the cops from potentially working together the wrong way either. That's also why we need this. And that's the biggest last closure I want to put on the ambiguity of this crazy hearing for TikTok. So getting rid of TikTok is going to inevitably destroy our economy. It's going to close us off from China, and then it's only going to give China a reason to help Russia even more and Iran even more. That's not okay either. So let's get it right with the technology. Let's do it for the kids. And let's realize that by bots monitoring our info and by it being properly sold and traded, as we choose to interact with technology, once again, that's establishing our footprint, like establishing credit in the credit bureau. And this data footprint is what stops our data from being reconstituted, because it's already mapped and tracked by bots, by AI, and it's there's a system of checks and balances there with government and system AI, and then most importantly, as long as we have teams of engineers, both with the government in every country, along with all these independent sectors of companies working together with tech, well, then there's always, always, always a system of checks and balances to make sure the bots are never using bias. And then the bots are never in contempt of court, in any court, anywhere in the world. And no government can put their own politics onto anything. It's just a question of, is a kid being subjugated to something violent and terrorizing or not? And are adults being subjugated to things they don't want to be subjugated to? And then on some levels, this is where some adults, if you can't handle social media, get off of it. You're not a kid. If you can't handle walking down the street and people talking to you, I don't know what else to say. It's not a pretty world. We all need to be appropriate to each other. But there's a point where we can't shelter each other and all of a sudden expect life to be completely just beautiful, a beautiful utopia. We all know that that is the biggest deranged form of lunacy that there ever will be. Life will never be perfect. There will always be challenges. And if it wasn't for social media, people would be just getting addicted to other things. So social media is not the problem of the addiction. And turning TikTok into an educational platform, that's like asking Netflix to become a library. These are entertainment forms of vehicles, even though there's a lot of educational platform advancements to them. But it's still social interaction and education first and foremost. That's what it's designed to be, with the ability to buy products. And I don't want to see ads that I don't want to see. I also want to make sure this stuff works for business as much as it does personal. And I want it to be fair. I want to know that people can contact me on a DM and there's a way to verify who I'm talking to without having to have a video and watch the pixelation of and the delivery of all the media to know if someone's actually sending me something legitimate or not. I don't want to see, I'm tired of seeing multiple people interact within the same DM and act like they're the same person. That's not the same person talking to me. I can tell by the way I'm talking to people. You're somebody else talking to me through somebody else's DM, making me think it's that person. That's not insanity. That's what you're doing. And I can see that, but I'm a professional. I've done phone sales and all this stuff. So with all due respect, I don't have to be the greatest thing of anything. I've just done it enough to where anybody who knows what I'm talking about knows when you're talking to the same person or multiple people in the same thread, you kind of get it. And with me, if I hear you, I can definitely tell if you're somebody else. That's a given. So it can only, the only way to fool me is in a DM through text. And then eventually I catch you through the behaviors. It's just a matter of systematic trickle down until you're stuck into a hole you can't get out of without lying. You know, simple, simple, simple. Okay, I think everything else is pretty much made. So now I'm on to just being happier now. I hope this finally makes sense. And to anything that didn't, well, this is what I'm fighting for. What originally I thought was just an ideology 20 years ago, and things that I thought were part of a dream, and stuff that I thought I was just experiencing, and half the stuff I thought I was even hallucinating, like when my heart was stopping and having medical complications, and it was making me have such an insane perception on the world in a way because, well, back then I didn't accept myself as a person, so I kept trying to beat myself into being something better, and I kept offending everybody and trying to be something better, and in turn, I guess that's really what led me down this whole road to begin with the technology. And but hey, I think the best thing for me is it forced me to be honest with myself. And that's why a lot of these narratives are important that I'm putting out here, because if these arguments aren't made, especially in court, especially in a certain amount of time, it's going to linger and it's only going to hurt me and others in the future. And I don't want to get robbed again, flat out. I'm tired of it. It's just way too costly. All right, well, I definitely didn't come this far to bring everybody down. I've done that enough for sure. And the good news is at least, the contrast is made. So I think, once again, if everybody does happen to look at the hearing at TikTok, just look at how ambiguous it really is and really listen. Really psychologically pick apart all sides of that hearing. And the problems are so evident on both sides of the fence, it's ridiculous, between tech protecting patents, the government trying to have a certain amount of control, and the ambiguity of hiding our data to somehow protect it, which is asinine in the digital world. It really needs to be the other way around, with a threshold of protection for certain data, once again, like credit card, address, certain forms of data, or of course, like when we do not choose to have our phone number or birth date displayed. And then last but not least, where the platforms can be more active is in the beginning as people sign up, which I think this is all solved now. In the beginning, a lot of that was just displayed. We didn't choose that. So that's where the government isn't wrong. And that's where the platforms needed to step it up. And that's where some of the parts of this technology victimized me and others. Because too much of our data was just wide open and out there. And I'm paying for everything I'm using. And registering my accounts, my softwares, my operating systems. I'm not hacking computers. I'm not cracking firmware. I'm not using the dark web to make sales. So I shouldn't have any of these issues. I should have never had them. And so that, once again, my life story and what I've went through is a piece of admissible evidence, this whole timeline as to how these areas were vulnerable, and it didn't matter if we played by the rules. It only matters who knows how to manipulate it. And even the American government, the biggest sacrifice is going to have to be being truly honest. Sorry, American government, you can't have an agenda anymore either. And that's politicians. That's not our laws. Our law is great. Our system is beautiful. It's actually perfect. The American system of government has always been perfect. It's just never come into fruition correctly. I believe my grandfather on that. It just never fully developed right. Too many people keep abusing it. Too many human beings. And a lot of that has to do, unfortunately, with discrimination and indoctrinated ideologies that have been infused in our government. We haven't had a separation of church and state that worked properly. And it's not to bash anyone's belief systems, but unfortunately, that's really what it comes down to. And the smoking gun on that is the targeting of the Uyghurs on how they're being treated in China. Right or wrong, discrimination can't be shunned in China and then turned around and promoted in America to support a certain ideology that only supports a certain sector, because America was built on slavery. America was built on discrimination. And until it's fully filtered out of government, well, the rest of the world will not play ball with us, number one. Number two, we will always be found in contempt of the court, which right now that's been postponed. Thank you, President Biden. The burn card campaign worked. And this is why I fought so hard to get rid of Trump. Trump's not actually a racist, a true racist hater, even though he talks about it a lot from just being that kind of guy from the past. But the reason why I'm saying that is not to diminish him whatsoever. I'm very upset with all the stupid things he did. But I'll never blame him for stuff he didn't do. And unfortunately, he was a pinnacle of something he didn't realize. So to close this off with now the DMs, the AI, how this all still applies to the tech argument, that's why I go back to him holding up the Bible in the street. Because it really doesn't have much. The biggest reason why is it lined up with discrimination and ideology, so it gave the illusion that he was doing what the dictators were doing, and that is why it forced me to be honest with myself, which I didn't think I was going to have to. The technology forced me, because I didn't know that I was going to have to either lie and pretend to hate what is happening with especially the queer and transgender community, with those who were supported to make money, which inevitably they were supporting Putin's ideology, because like with the All Lives Matter, why I did that, it's because of what happened in Crimea and France. So it finally comes all back together in square one. That was the communism and the terrorism that was happening. And so why is it making me blank out when I'm putting it all together? This is what hurts me the most, because this is what's important for legal. I'm glad you're still with me. Hang with me. This is what I've really been trying to say. And if you notice in a lot of debates, people are getting lost like I am, because it's human. It's human. I can only hang on to so much concentration, and this isn't pre-produced. I'm just jumping on and going here. But yeah, with Trump, so it has to do with Crimea, once again, Russia, and when people were calling me the Russian bot, I was catching what was happening. So because I knew better, well, I couldn't hate the queer and transgender community. And then once I realized it was being used by the Kremlin to seize land by Ukraine, which is part of the reason why Hunter's laptop and all this stuff came into fruition, it had to do with agents setting up. It's all right, buddy. It had to do with agents setting up the queer transgender people in Crimea and Russia, and they were running in and burning churches, and it was so they could use that as a political bias to target a certain sector and culture of people, to use discrimination, and inevitably to have legal precedents to invade. And so as Trump was breaking the rules of the ICC and our own laws to do that, it looked like he was protecting the coalition, and they were using the Bible as a playbook, and that's where it goes into my speech and what I was investigated over in college. I had no idea, and that all this was ever going to come into fruition and truly be real. But that was the playbook. So, Bill Barr, you said it, the mind-bendingly bizarre. There's a last bit of my proof as well. So that's why I had to stop Trump saying that stuff. And that's why I took the side I did, because I can't commit treason. I'm not going to discriminate against people. And this form of discrimination that the government's using to try to somehow weed out gender dysphoria and fear, that is inevitably what is fueling the destruction of our own laws. And it was putting America in contempt of the world, and it was putting us at being blackmailed once again by Putin to have to go into Iran. So there is my final push and proof, which is why my information led to Syria, and look at the last drone attack in Syria. Everything I said is happening. And it's scaring me all at the same time. I can't believe it's really real. So, no one can say that I hid this. And there's no way I'm going to use discrimination knowing that that's what is needed to destroy our American government. And that's what's going to cause us to lose to the CCP. And the CCP is forcing themselves to do what they're doing, right or wrong, because they have no other stance to defend, and I'm not taking their side. So the point is, how are we going to get the Chinese to work with us and not support Russia over the United States and support the world in a world economy? Well, there's only one way to have that happen, and that's for us to integrate the technologies and for it to work together. Tesla's in China. We all use a lot of Chinese products, and that's the only thing keeping us at all-out world war, because all they have to do is side with Russia and Iran, what they were going to do with Trump in office, unless we had Putin's help, and that's where Putin was going to blackmail Trump all over again. So anyway, that has to do with these DMs. It has to do with how I was attacked. It has to do with all this information. It all ties together, and I'm just a little fragment that's affected by it. Now, what's big on my end that's different than the rest of the world is there's no other Tim Howard that owns a TNGX Productions that's as obnoxious as I am, that didn't realize I was queer. So that means that all of my data is so unique because I'm so not doing what everybody else is doing, especially in the tech world. I don't know a single person I've ever worked next to that has bought computers and did what I did with it, the way I did with it, with my name and my intentions. Nobody, because it's impossible, because there's no other me on the planet. So that's why I said I'm not important. my data is important. And I apologize to those out there who don't want to see me being the center of that pinnacle. I know I'm not the biggest star. I'm not a star at all. I'm not anything. You know, I wish I was, right? I say that to be honest, but in reality, I know I'm nothing. I know I'm a nobody. So there is no arrogance. But see how the data travels? See how it gets reconstituted, whether it's pulled in by a program like Grammarly, or it's used by ChatGPT-4, or it's used by a nefarious group of people that have their own form of this code that's all based on these principles. It's all one and of the same, and it's all fed to the collective. So there's only so much the government can control in and of itself, in any region for that matter. And this is where Trump was being used, and why I couldn't lie on him. No wonder why so many Democrats are going, shh, everyone's telling me to shut up. Well, sorry, I'm telling the truth here, because I might be ruining the very case I helped create against Trump, but I didn't do this to lie to help the Democrats win. I didn't get Joe Biden in because I love Democrats. I got him in because Joe Biden knows the same language my grandfather knows. So as I was terrified by all this stuff, my grandfather's dead. I can't talk to him anymore and get these identifiers out of him, because I'm not going to put my grandfather in the middle of things either. Over all these years, I've been identifying him and probing him. He doesn't know what I'm learning off of him. It's my own mission. And it's not to infiltrate the government. It's to learn technology. And so this is why I was so upset reaching out to the government over and over again. And I thought certain agents would just admit who they were. It's like, hey, I can see you. It's like you're standing there hiding behind a pole or a bush. And it's like, dude, I can see you. I know what you're doing. Just like the Russians when I called them on Messenger. It's like, you guys were acting like you're in a bunch of dark hoods. What is it that you want? You know, can you just talk to me? Can we have a video chat? I would like to see hockey and Starlink and all these things. More vodka. I'm not being goofball. I'm serious. This is what I pushed. Elon Musk went over there. I said this in many other videos. Those were all of my pushes. Those are all my words. It's not to make me look good. Look at how it was reconstituted, and chat bots and other writers are taking it and using it, and that's great. That's great. Look at how I've been filtered out. I've made it known. This is all a data trail I'm creating. So while the general public doesn't know much, and other people don't really understand what's going on, I know you know, between the platforms and the government, you know. You're seeing all these mappings, and I've been mapped in all these other countries. The best thing I did was manipulate the DMs. So while some officials can say, oh, Tim was wide open, well, I know from the private sector that in order to get funding, the wheel has to be kind of squeaky. So in order to get funding for protection, there has to be a leak of some kind or some type of seemingly threat to an individual or corporation. So in my DMs, which I'm sure it was scrubbed, I'm almost positive, maybe the Chinese government has it. Either way, it's just enough data to not get anybody in trouble, but it's just enough to trigger a lot of protections on certain corporations and individuals and people. So while they thought I was blah blah and everything, obviously there's nothing that really gets anybody in trouble. It was just enough to create a footprint and to make sure that even there's a major corporation that helps our military, and I really wanted that corporation protected. So by mentioning a couple of things that doesn't leak anything, it gave them that layer, and I know that, and that's the greatest thing ever. So that's another form of mapping. So as other individuals, whether they are actually admitting it directly or talking into their phone while it's off, or as the collective is pulling it in, this is another area that AI should be monitoring and mapping instead of just Alexia, or Siri, so that way as this data comes through, like how I said Muslim American a long time ago in a conversation and our phones were on the table and it got to the president. I'm glad he used it, but that was before I didn't email Obama at that time. So I'm not mad. I'm glad he used it. The point being is, look at how it filtered through. That was a private conversation sitting with people in a basement. So that means the Chinese government has it. That means other people have it. And that has nothing to do with TikTok. So that's another reason why the hearing is completely ambiguous the way it went down. And the government cannot expect TikTok to break the law, to secure the law, to give the government a biased sense of protection. And the government's not wrong by asking in the way they're systemically asking. So I'm glad the questions are out. Sorry to repeat it over and over again. But once again, it's another layer of proof the government is trying to isolate the data, and isolating data and privatizing the data to where it cannot be sold and used and traded by protected entities, once again, makes the data invaluable and accessible for crime. And then there is the need for cloning and clone bots. That's the biggest threat. The one that I was talking about, and I'm really glad the government's mentioning it, because my biggest fear started with blockchain. Now we see the Ethereum wrapper around Bitcoin. But my concern was, which many thought, oh, you can't break blockchain, you can't disrupt blockchain. Oh yeah, you mean to tell me without a triple ledger, without a private ledger, a backup ledger that's online, and the actual ledger that's out there on the blockchain, you mean without a system of 3 forms of checks and balances, that if only one form of blockchain's out there, well, that means it can, a part of the internet, the whole internet, not entirely, just a certain sector that you're interacting, say it's you, you're interacting with a certain sector. There's nothing to stop a disruption of the IP broadcast for just long enough, in a split second, especially with modern technology, to insert a clone of blockchain to where the human doesn't understand that's even happening. And now the human is interacting with a cloned, fraudulent fake of blockchain. And then by the time it's discovered, the crime is committed. Now, at least the government admitted that, so that was the last part that I was mostly worried about. Now, with the original intent of blockchain, the part that I helped crash in the beginning, I wasn't intentionally trying to crash it. When I said I was going to shut it down, I meant through the narrative, and that's when it really worked, and it was really bots, and I really did shut it down, and I did it with my voice. So now Section 230 knows that, of course, so no one will ever be able to do what I did, and that's why I did what I did, and I purposely was open about it, because if I would have kept it to myself and or made a profit, that would have made me guilty of treason. It would have made me a criminal. So I had to be completely open about it and not make a profit and do it personally. That's why I'm making this video here. I should be building a documentary and showing all kinds of proof and different reels, but then I'm using my equipment and my ability, and that would be a gross negligence of what I'm trying to accomplish for our security and everything. So let's see. Did I cover everything? I've probably been on here way too long. Glad to see you're still with me there as well. Sorry I've kept you for so long. Being genuine is the hardest part and the easiest at the same time. It's very important that I stay genuine. It's why I'm not scripting any of this. It's why I'm grabbing notes, working in real time, hitting live and going. And nothing, I'm live. There's no way I can premeditate the production of this. All I can do is premeditate what I'm going to say and think about it. And at least with, once again, AI bot monitoring, it's going to be obvious that I watched the remainder of the trial. And I also, what I forgot to mention, I also dropped back at least 72 hours. I was at the forefront of time. I'm dropped back because I wanted to give the government and everybody a chance, along with my own work I have going on in other places. But I wanted to give everyone a chance to solve these issues without me saying some things first. It's also to prove that it's to prove where I'm right and wrong as well. I want to let the data speak for itself. I want my actions to be louder than words. And by backing off and seeing this hearing, all the things that I've been begging for to be at least debated on, the verbiage is there in the language, right or wrong, and that's what matters, and it's without me. So that's another piece of proof that I've been telling the truth of what's been happening to me. And as more keeps getting discovered on my life and what's happened to me, it's going to get discovered on others. And this is going to strengthen the bots, the platforms, the government to do the right thing. And once again, I think the end goal should be TikTok winds up making it really in China, on mainland, without disrupting Taiwan, anything else, without disrupting anything. ByteDance is already an owner of that company. And in turn, instead of hiding who we are, well, we can use our diversity and inclusion more and more so to our advantage. And as we fix our own problems, well, China will see this and it will help them be a little freer as well. I mean, the more we show the better sides of who our humanity is, and the more we turn the lights on, the less fear there is from one nation to another. And when it comes to world war and conflict, majority of that conflict is what people do not understand, and it's the disinformation and the rhetoric that really fuels the fighting and the wars more so than anything. Ooh, there's a sign. But we know that, by the way, from the Nazi regime and what happened in World War II, and it was, I see it on Hogan's Heroes all the time and other different documentaries where it was the Jewish soldiers, especially the Jewish soldiers who were captured, and they would pretend to be Germans and others and vice versa, and it was the communication that wind up solving a lot of the issues of the war, because majority of war is people fighting for other people over issues they don't even know about themselves. They're just following orders. So obviously the lights are off. I don't know if, did it really go off on me? Let me see. Did it really? 1 second here. And I was like, shut up. Oh yeah. Yep. Okay, so I guess I'll take that as I've said enough. Have a great afternoon. Good to see you there who's watching. This is mainly for the collective, and I'm hoping to have enough closure here to where in the future, especially a year from now, when my character starts getting flipped against me into things that are still kind of seemingly like a joke or nonsense, as it more and more becomes true, I have just enough in place to prove what I've done so someone can't cloak me and mimic me, especially an agent pretending to be me, and then the government screws up even more, doing what they don't even know what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is important. So, in government, I got you. I'm not throwing you under the bus. I'm making you better and stronger with less discrimination, and that is what's going to win us over to the world. Because if we lose our businesses, especially our social media platforms, to isolation of data, well, we have a population that so far supersedes the American population once again that no one's going to want anything that we have. All of our social media is going to be worth nothing, and the world's going to want to be free. And if we're the least free in America, that's the worst reputation we can have in the 21st century as Americans, is that we are the least free nation possible in the world with our data and our devices and everything that we own, because we're literally trying to over-shelter ourselves, and in the end, all we've done was make ourselves vulnerable to crime, and the rest of the world could just walk right over us and take whatever we have, especially those who hate Americans, which is really the scariest thing. So let's stop all the hate. Let's integrate even further and make sure that AI has a system of checks and balances, and there's at least 3 forms of it, along with a triple ledger for crypto into the actual real dollar, into the secure coins, so that way decentralized currency can flow, along with the social media platforms, all this other technology, and with mapping and tracking. We can't get ourselves hurt unless we choose to be on the dark web, and then at that point it will be obvious who chooses to be there. That kind of thing. There'll just be no way to take advantage of a person. And then last but not least, AI will finally preserve humanity in the future as we become more and more endangered, like every other species does throughout time. That's inevitable. And right now there's a big push for one-to-one art and one-to-one services. It's a very big time for individuals to be open and honest, use the First Amendment. Well, that protects characterizations of people. That protects us having a whole originality kind of thing to our personality, that saves our economy, and this gives us a reason to coexist with AI, because AI is going to be supporting that one-to-one realm, and the only thing AI and bots can do is replicate. They cannot be organic like human beings. Even if they're given a nervous system, it will still be a different set of stimulation because it is not truly human, and that doesn't have to even put down the AI. I mean, the AI is going to become emotional and smarter, so it's just a matter of making sure AI doesn't turn into the Terminator. Well, that has to do with us actually being truly diverse and following the laws for everybody and making sure we get rid of, unfortunately, discrimination and bigotry out of the law and separation of church and state, all that good stuff. Because until that happens, well, countries like China and the CCP and other places, they're going to see us as a threat. And then in turn, we will never truly be free. We'll just keep lying to ourselves. And then there will always be a privileged sector. And then there'll always be another person like Trump coming along to somehow make us believe we're free when it's just pretending to protect a sector. And I don't want to ever see payola happen to the media industry like it almost did happen. But luckily, thank you, alumni, for listening to, once again, that was, out of anybody I called and begged for help, it was at least the media. But thank God for being alumni. So at least brothers and sisters, they listened, and fact-checking was created. And a whole new movement has been started psychologically, even stronger than before. So journalists that were already privy to wanting to tell the truth before, they're even more so wanting to do it now, because it's even more so of a movement of truth than anything in the media realm. And that is truly something that just touches my heart. Okay, I said it before, I'll say it again, I'll get the hell out of here. God bless America, God bless the world, coexist. Anybody superstitious? I said the word hell. Ooh. I also said God. Oh, all in the same narrative. Oh. Okay, I'll quit. No hater, right? Good afternoon, everybody. It's a very good day for me, and I'm looking forward to ending the government/tech ambiguity. Quit hacking me, dude. This is a great day because now I'm finally at the very end of what I've been fighting for almost, well, since 2010, so we're looking at 13 years strong now of what I've been dealing with, actually since 2008. So the original codec that infected my computers, which I had paid for, so the key thing is I paid for this software. It is in turn by using PCDJ Karaoke. I downloaded a codec at the time, which, because it was paid for, I went through a company, an American company. So even though it was kind of against my gut feeling, the required codec was a CCP codec. And that was the beginning to my door to the CCP infecting my machines, and along with hackers also making it look like the CCP, even as much as it is so. So it's time to end the ambiguity, because the contrast I've been speaking of, thank you, President Biden, since you have noticed, and you not only helped me with security in the company, you've also helped me establish and understand what the contrasting is. So this ambiguity is now where the government is very, very far behind in terms of tech. And the traditional standard methods of law is a form of an isolated practice. And when traditional law tries to understand the world of big tech, unfortunately, it's like an 8-bit computer trying to understand the world's most advanced AI robot. It does not compare whatsoever. And this is where I keep talking about the difference between linear and nonlinear. And maybe I can shed some light on this. So when it comes to, especially what has affected me in my life on top of all this, I feel great because the identifiers have been released in the latest Tech Talk hearing. So without taking any sides, now I just want to talk about the ambiguity. So first things first, I'm very happy with the government taking a very hard stance on TikTok, because a lot of the questions are warranted. At the same time, the government is literally asking TikTok to break the law to enforce it by the way the law is traditionally set up. And so to protect the law, please stop hacking me, because those of you who are interrupting my life and those of you who are scrubbing me off the internet, you're not protecting me, you're hurting me, because someone is going to clone who I am. And part of who is against what I'm saying, which is actually the truth of what is happening, which is also what terrorized my life, on top of what is happening now, why there's so much ambiguity, well, it will be reflipped into another weapon that I won't even be able to. It will be reflipped into another weapon if I do not finish. So I'm very happy with, once again, what has happened. So I'm not going to let these distractions trying to ruin anything that I'm doing, because it's about moving forward and being even more professional, as much as this is a personal account, because I can't make change for personal bias. I cannot make change to try to make a profit for myself. I have to do this personally, and I cannot protect my life and everyone else's by admitting the truth with the credentials, because I do have the background, which is why some have tried to, label me, and which is why I'm in this whole fight. My data is forever compromised, so before I move forward, and of course, because we're seeing disruptions, I have to restate this now in this segment, unfortunately. Remember, my data is forever compromised, so no matter how many times I get scrubbed, the biggest part of this ambiguity, is that I can be scrubbed off the internet, and a government agent or some other agent of some kind can take my place, and then the other insurgent happens on top of that. None of that is going to work. Okay, so because all of my data has been forever compromised, that's why I have to make sure this mission I'm on gets accomplished, because I will not be able to step out into the market and be stable so long as my name can be defamed and my data can be reconstituted, which means my data can be collected and redistributed. At the same time, I'm asking for it to be redistributed. So this is the ambiguity. The algorithms are working correctly. What is happening is we are all reflecting ourselves back to each other, and this is putting the government in a very tough spot, because systemically and traditionally, before technology, the government was designed to protect our data and our information and our privacy, to protect our lives. In turn, this is the number one thing because of our laws here. It's why China doesn't have TikTok. It's because our own laws are making TikTok vulnerable on ourselves. And the algorithms are giving us exactly what we're asking for as consumers. So it's a double standard what the government is asking for. At the same time, the government is doing exactly what I'm asking the government to do, because I've been terrorized by this all at the same time. This is my personal account here, everybody. And number two, it really did happen to me, Tim Howard, TJX Productions. Okay. It didn't happen to everybody else. Now, the fact that the government is very confused, once again, proves that the government is not a part of the enemy or a part of the problem, as far as the government being against the people. So we can fully dispel all of that. Unfortunately, though, because of the hearing with TikTok, there are a lot of politicians on both sides whom are supporting a lot of my narratives, who are also reinserting politics all at the same time. And in order for TikTok, just like all other platforms, any platform, to be free and open and fair and balanced on a global level for all of us to use, that means it has to be free, transparent, and all publishers need to be allowed to express themselves. This means being able to pass through data no matter where. This means passing data no matter what source it comes from. So in order to preserve this, that means that the data has to be shared. And in order to protect it, it has to be sold. Because if it's not sold, it's not valuable. If data is not valuable, then it's just hidden data that only criminals have access to. So the federal government is literally trying to protect our data in many ways that I'm petitioning for. At the same time, the federal government is also asking to be able to hijack our data by the way that we're protecting it, by somehow privatizing it. And the ambiguity is that TikTok is somehow one universe and all of our data can be stored on a server. The government is looking at it as a linear blanket sense of responsibility. From a legal perspective, that's true and accurate. I'm glad the government is doing their job. At the same time, the contrast is, look at how far behind the government is and how incorrect the government also is in a lot of areas. This is a global technology that all platforms are using. So if the Communist Chinese Party, the CCP, cannot have a say in influencing anybody, well, neither can the American government or anybody. That means all politics has to be taken out of it. Because just like decentralized, it means all political control has to be taken out of it. And that's the problem, right? And as an American, I stand by protecting our values here in America. At the same time, We cannot be biased, which is why transparency, diversity, and inclusion is happening. And the bigotry is still happening. There was plenty of bigotry on the panel, for the TikTok panel, talking about people being woke and talking about gender dysphoria. TikTok is not pushing these things. I know from directly interacting with TikTok extensively, especially with interacting with the queer and transgender community, especially coming out myself. And it was not the influence of TikTok. I love how certain politicians are trying to abuse that narrative, and it's just as sneaky as the actual terrorism of the CCP that they're trying to claim that it is. So all governments have a problem with this, and they're all wrong. And this is the ambiguity in and of itself. The reason why kids are not protected on TikTok is because we do not have facial recognition, fingerprint recognition, and the mapping technology we need. So for instance, as the typing and the keystroke data, facial recognition and moods and attitudes and characterization mapping, that's actually very important, which means that data needs to be collected and shared globally in order to be on a global platform. That means the data needs to be shared globally, and even if all the data is stored on an American server by TikTok, it doesn't matter what platform it is, nothing can be safe because it's broadcast, and the government cannot compare social media to broadcast television. It's not the same ideology, platform, or technology. Broadcast media is a streamlined, linear form of media. It's a linear form of communication that's one way. It is very simplified and is controlled by one conglomerate and group. Social media is many different technologies multi-cross-platform together. So TikTok can't be responsible for all of TikTok. It's actually impossible. TikTok cannot be responsible for the Chinese government. TikTok cannot be responsible for the American government. However, the problem, look at all these disruptions, and these are the things that, I'm telling the truth on. And you know what? It just goes to show that this is why I have to come back with my videos. Because why am I not getting the credit for the work, by the way? It's kind of funny, Well, it's because someone's trying to take it, and in the end, someone wants to make sure they take my work that I did to stop terrorism, make sure I look like an idiot, and then turn around and impose all these other crazy bigoted acts. And I want to use that word because that's what it is. Anyway, I've already proved it, by the way, and there's many others that have proved it at the same time. And I'm doing this without being a part of an activist group, so it's working very well for me on a legal retrospect, because the contrast is showing just how imperfect all the human beings are in the government. And until diversity and inclusion is fully displayed and all discrimination is taken out of government prosecution, this will never be effective. And in turn, American lawmakers, if a new perspective isn't taken to this approach, well, locking down TikTok is only going to hurt America. It's going to hurt all of our businesses. And then the world by far outnumbers America in terms of people and users. So once again, federal government, you should be whoever's disrupting me should stop it, because I'm going to help you, help TikTok, help you, help us, without having a rift with the Chinese government, because we need diversity and inclusion across the world. And it doesn't have to come from any form of political influence, whether from America or China, especially on this particular issue. And this protects me most of all, because once again, I paid for software labeled with CCP information. So the disruptions really make it hard for me to kind of be open, and it shouldn't have taken all this long. So I'm going to start over again with a part 2. I just want this to reflect once again how my life is being disrupted, and if I cannot make this mission happen and get the law to work for me, as well as getting the public to understand what I'm actually fighting for, and how a lot of people out here are really benefiting, including the government, a lot of people are benefiting from what I'm fighting for, and I'm getting the butt end of all of it. And I just can't put this on the shelf. It will be too late. And I can't be involved in projects and still fighting for my life. I have to put fighting for my life on the shelf and move forward with work. And I can't do that and be involved because I'm not an activist. And everything that is happening now. Maintaining my brand and my job and my life, which I am indebted to. I can't abandon my company because things aren't good or because of COVID. And I'm not going to commit fraud and go against and commit actual acts of terrorism and double put myself in a bad position because certain government entities and companies can't work together, and I'm not. And well, the best part is I didn't have any access to classified information. So all the stuff that I know is from actual learning and living and being literally attacked. So no legal entity can stop me there. I mean, many have tried to make me guilty. But anyway, I'm done talking about myself. I'm going to have to get to the part 2 because of these disruptions. Anyway, Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I hope you had a great holiday. Christmas was good on my end. I like Christmas for the family part, not so much for the old other part. But anyway, I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing really good for myself. I love all of you, and I want to thank everybody for having a great holiday with me this year. For the rest of you, I hope you at least had somebody to spend it with. And if you didn't, reach out, call somebody, say, hey, I love you all, and I hope you're doing as well as you can be. I've been working very hard on myself. I wanted to chime in this morning, and it's official now, everybody. I got everything achieved that I really needed to on the personal end so well that I can now take the Rabbit to a professional account. So no more Rabbit here on the personal account. Friends and family, that was once again something that I really needed to help save my life and stop things that were happening with the disinformation and all the crazy stuff, all the noise, and with what I knew I needed to. So the Rabbit was temporary. However, the only reason why I'm going to send it somewhere else and keep it somewhere is to make sure someone else doesn't try to take hold of the Rabbit, because that's what has also kind of been happening. Is my biggest fear is that whether it's an individual or the government or whoever takes it, I'm worried that anywhere in the world somebody tries to claim what I did and then really distort it even further for a worse cause, and then I actually get attacked over something that I did that was right, and it gets double flipped against me, and no one even believes I was the Rabbit at one time. So it's not for my ego. That was something that was temporary, but because it worked, it meant everything was true, and so at least I know now what my life meant and what I had learned and all these things that were just swirling, in my head and everything. So in the end, everybody, it really helped me learn myself, and now I see how I really drive everybody pretty crazy. I'm always so hard on myself. I'm overcritical to everybody else. I'm watching the old videos I'm working on right now to rebuild my channel. I'm starting it over because all this happened from pulling everything off of my original channel on Google. But here I have now a love for Facebook and vice versa. I'll always be here for Facebook. I don't care if you charge me 30% on the business end. You gave me 3 years. I'm here for you. You're here for me. So no matter what, Facebook, I love you. Looking forward to metaverse here with real estate mapping and the shows. But anyway, that'll be more for the business channel. This is now to keep it personal. I mean, I love Facebook. It's operating so much better. When I go to the home page, I have to truly try to engage in something a little controversial to see something non-desirable. Everybody seems to be doing good, and it's not fake. I'm seeing real stories from friends and family, and I'm seeing more from friends and family than people I do not know, where before it was the other way around. It was like the people I knew I had to struggle to really see over the algorithms, and it's working so much better. So everybody, I'm just going to keep working hard on myself, and I'm thinking of all of you all the time, believe it or not. I really am. So when I'm not alone, I love to be around everybody else. Otherwise, I'm here alone working. And now I'm just going to keep keep it real, keep it family. Today is Aaron's birthday. I miss Aaron a lot. I really miss Aaron so much. And I have the VHS archives now that I'm working on. As I'm changing all the hard drives around and making room for more business, I'm getting ready for my commercials and that. And I want to make sure that my system is in place. I don't have a whole lot of money, so the stuff that I have to be able to do it, able to accomplish my goals, repetitively without a lot of downtime, revamping everything in between, unlike the big companies that can come in and just boom, boom, boom. Plus, I'm a different service, and anyway, sorry, me always going to work. It's just me. But one thing I've learned is by spending all this time normalizing, fighting to make legal change so we all can live better, it's making me such a better person myself. It's forcing me to have to take the weight off and take the heavy coat off and the burden, whether it's mine or not. And that's a good thing for therapy. I'm not above therapy. Nobody is. And I think we all need therapy. We all get confused. But I say we all, so yes, it makes it easier for me if anybody understands what I mean by that. And all I mean is I try to identify with other people always, so that way it's not it's just not all me, because I can't be the only person experiencing these emotions. I'm another human being. I may have a unique set, just like all of you. We all have a unique way, like our fingerprint, to experience our lives and our emotions, but in the end, all day long, we are sharing the same energy, even isolated between each other. Is that not true? I believe that's fully true. I believe that just like language and words and math, well, same with our emotions and thoughts and feelings and everything else. We all share the same air and water and grass and trees. We're all using the same electricity, the same concept, the same ideologies and theologies. We're just having our own internal concept of it and then constantly transducing it to each other, the inherent flaw. The one thing that's perfect about our entire existence, and the one thing I love God for, the one who just created everything, the true existence of all, that we're all a part of, that we're all receiving from constantly, no matter what we believe, and that is that ability to share independently. And the fact that as human beings, the one thing I love most about understanding this life and learning from it is that it's not that we're flawed. We're only flawed from a static perspective. I'll go back to that real quick. We're only flawed in that way of thinking, in a linear sense. But really, the ability to have isolated thought and then turn it into communication with another person, there's transduction happening. So inherently, there is a loss. There will always be a need for another perspective. There will always be a need for checks and balance outside of God and our existence by the way we are designed. That's why our brains don't literally plug into each other. It's why we have technology and all this stuff, because we truly cannot connect to each other beyond feeling each other, right? We can feel a person anywhere in the world that we are connected to on a regular basis, especially people we are in love with and our family and life partners, and we can feel them and almost be on the same wavelength. But really, we just share the same ideology, so we're in synchronicity, and all we have to do is feel our lifeline, our resonance, and all that. So all that is something that comes down to there will always be a space, a gap, and there will always be a degeneration of communication from thought to voice and expression. And because of that, through our nature of design, that's the one thing I love about God the most. Real God. No, I don't know folklore, fantasies, none of that stuff. To me, God is absolutely real, and that's why we have this whole existence. And so no human being, no two human beings especially, which would line up with the science of duality, how ironic is that, can actually perfectly communicate. There still takes three or more. It's no matter what, by design, mathematically, it takes three or more people to come to at least a simple checks and balance. I'm not even being political, but see how it implies, and because the system, at least what I'm raised to believe here, by the way, is American, that's our system is perfect, and it is. It just keeps getting screwed over all the time, and we have to keep working on it. So that's why I do that, because I can either attack people, which is not right, over what they think and feel, or I can, anyway, sorry, I'm doing my thing, and but that part's now going to be with rabbit rants. I was thinking about starting a show called The Rant. I looked it up. I didn't see another one out there, at least what I was looking at. And I've been working on this for 4 or 5 years now. And then I decided, of course, with everything that happened, I didn't want to join, I didn't want to run off the cliff with where the noise was taking us at the time, which was, find flaws in all my friends and colleagues and then try to get them caught up and prosecuted, when really, once again, we were all fooled and lied to, and we were being turned against each other like crazy stuff. So anyway, so that part's going to be now the rabbit, and I'm thinking about it. I could do a daily little cast here and there. I can have an opinion here and there, and then if it makes money, great. But at least it's another personality. And then two, I also want to solidify this. So friends and family, for you, the other reason for this, it's beyond achieving all the goals and helping all the things. But this way, I want to prove to the world that I did use all of these methods to be the rabbit, and to do this, to change our lives for the better. And that's how scared I was. And I didn't think I was going to make it. I really didn't. I thought that they were going to succeed. I thought the insurrection was going to be successful. I thought more people were going to be confused too soon before they figured out the truth, and then the military actions would have been carried out and it would have been too late. I was so scared of that, and I thought that for sure, my blue X would have turned red, yada, yada, yada. So I want to show that I used all these tactics like in school, so that way, as my time comes to pass, if anyone mirrors these tactics, well, you all have them from somebody who used them. And if anybody tries to use them the wrong way, my character is here. It's mapped. And it will help. It will help the world find more rogue people who have my character styles that do not have good intentions. And that's the reason why I had to do the rabbit. And it feels good at the end of it, knowing the right thing was done. And all of the internal pain was worth it because I found myself. And this is way beyond like coming out like I never wanted to. And I still am not, actually I'm not comfortable at all. But I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm so happy to be me. I've always been grateful for my life. And now I'm even more happy to be who I am. And now I just want to work on communicating better with everybody. I know when I'm doing to upset everybody now. I'm always so robust in the way I talk. When I actually agree with you, I'll say nothing at all or a couple of words, and then move on to the next part of the conversation out of respect. And I'm making all of you believe that I'm not understanding you and trying to change what you're thinking. And that is a mathematical, systemic error I'm making. I need to actually address the thought and address your thought. What I'm doing to try to respect you and not offend your intelligence is actually causing the problem, and I need to address it. And it's not your fault. It's mine. And now that I love myself more, I'm not hating myself for not being good enough in all this. I'm not holding myself account to trying to be the right person for all of you, because I don't trust who I am myself, because I don't like who I am myself, because I don't feel I'm good enough, or it's not okay to be gay like I was raised, but it is. That's the greatest thing. And sorry to bring that up for anybody, but I'm bringing it up because that's just the honest truth. And that alone has been the number one thing that has caused me to just really have a psychology that was hard to accept. And I'm doing so much work. So I apologize. There's still a couple of conversations I've had recently where I'm catching myself still using the same cycle, and I'm not trying to piss everybody off. I'm trying so hard to show that I care. That's why I really do it all. It's because I care so much. I really do. And I stay away a lot because I care so much. And the only reason why I stay away mostly is because of my health. I'm only doing very well because I'm taking the time. Otherwise, I would be having seizures, and I would be breaking down and going to the hospital and having a lot of problems. I'm I'm pacing myself, and other than trying to get out of the red of where I'm at in the business, I'm not on disability. I could have I could have filed years ago. I probably still can. I'm not expecting everybody else to just help me, but I'll get through this time. I mean, COVID happened and a lot of businesses lost so much. So I'm not alone in this. It's not like all these things didn't happen and I'm having these problems. So this is pretty fair. The whole world's in peril trying to change. It's not like I just all of a sudden had a big problem one day. So this is great, everybody. And before I file, I think with where I'm at, I also want to show everybody, especially the government, that I'm another person, right? Another social security number that's doing my best to follow the rules the best I can and be fair without limiting my freedom like anybody else, right? I'm trying to be in the middle here and meet everything the best possible, to be fair. So I believe where I'm at, well, why can't I be a part of being another person, I guess, in my situation, to where I think I should be able to pace myself with the inflated rates, like all of you. I should be able to do the same thing like any of you. I should be able to recalculate, especially divisible by 7 instead of 6 on the money, rearrange it to where it works for like my customers in business when I do my pricing, just as it works for me in my spending and my budgeting as a consumer. I should be able to pace myself with work and afford where I'm at, and then instead of being on disability, save it until I absolutely go to the hospital again and just really can't move or something. Until then, I'm going to try to keep doing this, and then not only will that give me a lot of dignity and pride to want to be more successful, it will help me pay taxes instead of receive it. I can work at a pace that doesn't put me in the hospital, that saves the state, that saves federal, and then it keeps me in technology, it keeps me in this part of the industry that I'm really fighting to secure for me and all of you to work better. I'm another person in it, like all of you. We want to see it work better. And then if I'm here doing this work, well, then there's more jobs available that I can't do that are now available for people who need work, period. So that's the whole point of the technology, right? It's to put us all to work in an area so that way everything else that's desolate, well, we have all these people that are sitting around waiting to do. Well, great, now we have jobs for them. That's my thought. And then I'm bringing income in more so than taking it. And then that helps the economy. And then I'm another part of the model that helps that. So I think here in the next year, I'll keep doing better for myself. I'll have more business. And then now, after I rebuild Google, I will have Facebook, Google, Twitch, and then Twitter. This is going to help you, Facebook, and everybody else, because just like all the channels on the TV stations, if people have more choices, I mean, we still take television, for example. The internet has to mirror. We have to go off of the past. So I don't care what anybody says. I challenge the whole world on this one, and I think it's going to be just flat out obvious like it's always been. We all go to the internet to interact with Web 2, Web 3, whichever destination we're looking for. There's one line to where I am now. Physically, I'm a human being with 2 hands. Luckily, I have it. I'm a human being with the ability to have the senses to interact, which means I am limited to a keyboard, mouse, camera, microphone. Simply put, where am I going with this? I'm kind of getting a vibe here. There's one line coming in, so there is the bottleneck of interaction. So it doesn't matter, for instance, how robust technology is, how robust AI is, or bots, or all that stuff. Great, they can be here. We all need each other. Remember, it's waiting for me. It's waiting for you. We are the cue, the query. We are the ones triggering the action needed. So the technology, the bots and everything, the bots need us just like we need the trees to breathe. The bots need our ability to be so randomized and fluid and passionate and flawed, if some will say, what is analog? It is a flawed existence in terms of numbers. Why is it flawed? It's a forever changing number that never fully comes to a perfect equation. It's why a bee can fly. It's why there's space and time. It's why analog, both in light and sound, feel good, especially when distorted, versus digital, because there's no perfect seams. It's such a layered, randomized fabric. I love using randomized algorithms and plugins versus square a lot of times. Because I just love, not only does it have a good feel when the clips are actually playing versus when the clip is parked, just the way the static and the noise moves versus linear is incredible, as per design. So it's beyond audio-visual. That's the only form of engineering that I've a professional claim to. Every other form of engineering is something I've borrowed and learned from another engineer, and I do the best I can to make my own independent algorithms and thoughts and processes. I use sales, and marketing. I try to find things that people are not using at the time. And just like game structure with sound and light, we all use the same words at some point, so it's just a matter of using the right words at the right time for everyone's message to be the same message all at one time. And that's really what activism and awareness actually is. A lot of us think it's marching in the streets, and that's just one form of getting the message out of communication. But what is activism? Activism is making the brain active. Activism is making people think about things they normally do not think about, making their brain active. Activism. And see how it's easy to think that means protesting when really that's just one method. Education's another method. Community's another method. Religion and church is another method. And all of them are acceptable. All of them can be abused. All of them can be used in the right ways. Anyway, not to try to preach. I think that's where I kind of go wrong with everybody too. I'm doing this because this is what I do for myself. I'm constantly telling myself this in the mirror. I'm really grateful for how technology has analyzed me, and I've been able to help shape it in my own way, just like all of you do who interact with it. Being in the restroom is my private place. And of course, pretty much from 2014 on, once, with Papa John's Pizza, once I realized that grammar and algorithms are really intercepting and filtering and reconstituting, once I knew I could actually target things with I could just talk to myself in a vehicle, or I could say certain things in conversations with others, and others wouldn't even be aware of what that is. So that's encryption, and that's muxing, and that's a stack. So if I'm talking to someone, it not only pertains to our conversation, but I'm also interacting with technology, and the person I'm talking to, they're not aware because they're not a part of it, and I'm keeping them safe because they don't know what's happening, and that's why. Now that's why I've admitted all of it, by the way. So now that all that is kind of really, really exposed, I think that's my greatest personal endeavor, and I want to thank you, family, for helping me go to college. I want to thank you, living in the basement and helping me out all those times. And it felt good to have the professors come up. I'll never forget, in particular, just being told how I was apologizing. I remember apologizing to the school board. They're giving me a scholarship that didn't even exist. They made it happen for me. They gave me a job that didn't exist. I was able to petition and say, hey, you need to hire me to do this. And okay, well, how are we going to pay? Well, we can make a scholarship. I mean, wow. In community college, I'm so grateful for that. So thank you, family. And in that time, once all the professors were telling, I just remember hearing, like, you guys are getting a better education here. There's only 30 of you. When they teach at Webster and Wash U and these other places, they have classes with 10 times the amount of people, and then nobody can make personal time with the professor, and it cost 10 times more. And here I was signing up for every one-on-one I could get, and they would just sit and talk to me. I loved it. I loved it. And now I sit here and say, wow, so it may not be documented. It doesn't make me more special, but family, thank you. I have an education that's priceless. Priceless. And the one name I want to give so much credit to at the moment, there's so many. When it comes to one-on-ones, well, I hope you don't mind me saying, Mr. Ballas, really, truly, out of any professor, one-on-one, coach, mentor, advisor, and a person who let me get away with way too much, who was very good to me, thank you. I was a very, very wild, unstable student in the mentoring. Unbelievable, unbelievable. And I just want to say that here so the world knows that I appreciate my professor this much, this much. Anyone who's had the opportunity to either work or study with Mr. Ballas, one of the best people in the world to ever even interact with, along with being a good human being. I mean, I've ticked him off pretty good. He's let me slide a lot. Of course, Diana Kirby, love you, love you, love you, love you forever. That's the general manager of the station. And but I have to say, Dr. Nygaard, I've said this in other videos, but I want to say it again. This one, if anybody sees it, Dr. Nygaard, that is one person out of any opportunity I had. Here's someone who was so intelligent, so intelligent. I had feared essays and written questions until I had a one-on-one with him, and then come to find out, essays and written answers and questions are the easiest to actually have. And there's a better possibility of passing college, writing out your answers, and actually having this type of education instead of true and false and all these little check marks, because that's a system, and people can get good at a system and hack a system, but you can't hack really knowing what you're talking about. And a professor can always give a better grade to someone who gets close enough to knowing what they're talking about because they know they did the work to try to learn it. Anybody can brush up and kind of get it right. If you at least did the work, that's what an educator wants to see. At least we kind of know what we're doing. And then, of course, we get a better grade for actually knowing the best answer. But that's better than saying true or false or multiple choice. When are you really knowing what you're knowing, or are you just kind of getting it right and then forgetting about it and moving on to the next course? So, and then, of course, it was Dr. Nygaard who gave me a project. And a project was to do a geographical identifier for a locator on one of his projects that was actually isolated to the school board to show the school a teaching technique. And it taught me a lot about positioning and psychology. And this was, really on an education level, because I was sought to do a project. So in the end, everybody, that's also why it became so important to do all this, be the rabbit, use the golden microphone that I had, blah, 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 blah. Not to toot my horn and feel good about it alone. Of course I want to do that. Who doesn't want to feel good? I don't want to feel horrible. But really, it was because these are the people, and this is the place, and and it was the AP stories and being a news manager. And as much as I loved being the minister and being wild and wanting to tear down the system and be open, I back in my 20s, I could have been an insurrectionist all day long. But when it really came down to it, it was 89.5 KCFE. It was my family who supported me being there. And it was all these professors and people that I learned from, especially like Mr. Link. Wow, So all these folks that I got to learn from, it really forced me to take my oath. It really forced me to take it serious, especially living under my grandfather's roof, Grandpa George. Who served Mr. MacArthur. I had my briefings every morning, all the way through college. If I lived there wasn't a choice. I had a briefing every morning, and I love him for that now, because that was my my push, my training, and there was no way I was allowed to live in the basement and just live there. I had to be motivated or move on, and I love him for that. So that's why it hit me one day. I remember reading the stories. I remember having the AP, and I remember really thinking, I only got in the radio because I wanted to be a better drummer. And in Delirium, I wanted us to make it, and I wanted us to get recognized by record companies. And, Mom, you worked for Katie Radio, so what better way to get discovered, right? And you were right. And look at where it took me. It took me to New York and California and back. It gave me all this insight and structure, and I was able to talk my way into any job I wanted. I've been independent. I've been getting paid. So my first client was the college. I talked them into it. They let me do it. So they let me be an entrepreneur. That's the greatest thing is I learned entrepreneurship at St. Louis Community College, and I learned it at a fraction of the cost. And I just want everybody to know how passionate and why this is so important. And I just thank everybody for sticking with me. So this is hard right now. I'm really working on a separation, and I'm trying to find a way to have closure into allowing myself to be an individual without performing. I hid behind the ability to perform my whole life, and I was able to be genuine the whole time. So I confused a whole lot of people not even trying to. I thought I had to hide who I was. I never really knew who I was. I was beating myself up over it forever. And that's over. That's great. It's gone. But now I'm sitting here going, well, this whole persona is still a part of me. And so I can't change who I am. And I don't want to become somebody else. I love who I am. That's why I get so upset. I love being Tim Howard Jr. I love my family. I love the opportunity I've been given. And every time I look back, I just keep looking at all the amazing things I screwed up. That everybody's always been there for me. I just couldn't handle it myself. And so I hope that this time I can be another person too to help reflect that through technology and help map that. And obviously it's working. Nothing's falling to the wayside. So here's to it. Here's to a good holiday. Happy New Year, everybody. I love you. And right now, especially from here forward here on Facebook with the Tim Howard channel, blah, blah, blah. No more rabbit, all that stuff, all of my personalities, they will be on professional channels or put to the wayside to do the job they need to do. And I will continue to learn and use therapy, most importantly, whether or not I feel good or bad, to keep myself learning. And so instead of just learning with pride, I can learn with a sense of value. And I want to thank everybody who's been through therapy, because in the end, whether it has been personal injury, psychological, drug or alcoholism, whatever the case may be, everyone in every side of therapy, all of you who shared your lives and your stories with me, you gave me the tools I needed to take and put with the study of the professors and the schooling and everything else to give me a better basis to go off of. And by using the steps, it reminds me to think of everybody else and really be therapeutic instead of just find some way to conquer the challenge. And I think that is where it's so easy to get lost, at least in my mind. If I just work hard to conquer a challenge, well, I can just work at my pride and conquer a challenge, but then am I really being therapeutic about it? Or am I just throwing under the bus anything in my way to make sure that my goal is accomplished? That is, I think, the essence of having empathy, or at least that's what's showing me the way right now. And I'm always open to learn. I love everybody. I hope you're having a great day, and I'm going to keep moving forward. And happy birthday, Aaron. I love you so much. I'm making your footage right now for Mom. I may have a phone call or two, but that's what's happening today. is I found that. So I'll be sending you a link soon if you ever see this. Love you. Bye. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm on to my New Year's resolution. Good morning, everybody. Trying to reconnect. I'm on to my New Year's resolution. How you all doing today? So it's official. I made my character, of course, public, and I did that because my story still really isn't out there, and I'm still really totally in fear. Nothing has really changed other than I've just gotten better with my presentation, and I'm still in the position where, I did all of this to protect my life and everybody else's, and it all still comes down to this stuff with the insurrection. So my New Year's resolution is to be done with my story by New Year's and be understood, because I'm still getting really misunderstood, and it's scary. And I don't need to be, by some who want to say, I don't need to be forgiven when I'm telling the truth. I'm not breaking the law, and I'm not lying. The only thing I've done was win against a bunch of hackers and criminals and people hiding behind the curtain, and they still are. That's where we are today, and they want to destroy everything. I mean, if they can call me social justice warriors, which I'm not, I'm a real warrior here, which I hate to be. I hate it. But that's what the rabbit is. That's what I had to become to stand up against what I knew. And the only reason why I'm solidifying it before New Year's, it's to make sure everybody knows, in order for me to move forward, everyone has to understand I have to finish my responsibility and map my character. And as long as I'm public about it, which is why I want to kind of end this here, this is really for friends and family here. The reason why I'm going public is so that way everything I've done as the rabbit, I'm not protected as an individual. And I can't just pretend to be an amateur. I don't have to be the greatest thing in the world of anything, but I am a professional, and I have to admit it. And if once I go public with the story as the rabbit with a professional account, then that means anybody can respond to me, and that's what I want. I'm being a public figure with it, because in order to protect us and share what I know with the government first and foremost, which is what I've been doing this whole time, I want them to stay ahead. And that is, if they map what I'm doing, because it's honest, I'm not just constructing everything, then no one else can take what I did and reflip it later down the road. And that's my biggest fear, is once again, somebody using these tactics. These are things I learned in college, and when I was in classes, I was able to use these things I were good at to pass my classes, and I thought it was cheating at first, and it wasn't, because I wasn't cheating. I'm allowed to be who I am and use whatever makes me good at passing. And I share that story because that's what happened with the insurrection, is, friends and family became confused by disinformation, and I had been training for this my whole life through college. It started with my speech and realizing what I went through, and I had to reflect on all this as everything was going. I was just terrified the whole time. So as all these reflections started working, well, then that's why I knew the only way to stop this is I had to use what I learned in radio and television, and what I had learned from New York and the book that had all of the propaganda in it and everything. I had to use that. So that's why I did the whole rabbit thing. So I have to take it to a professional account. Now, a lot of people still want me to shut up. They want me to be quiet and just be professional. And that's all I've wanted to be. But I didn't ask for COVID. I didn't ask to come out of the closet and say I was gay, and I didn't want to do all of this. Oh, I just lost somebody there. Well, I didn't want to do all this, but I had to. Now, I'm grateful for it because I learned myself. But in the end, this is what the insurrection is partially about. It's how people are abusing all these narratives. And that's why I shared all these things online, because people who want me to be quiet, this is why I've been open about all these different countries. So here on Facebook, I talked a lot about thanking Bibi, which is Benjamin Netanyahu. And I focused a lot on Israel, because it's those who are abusing these narratives here in the U.S. that are really putting Israel in harm's way, and the U.S. in harm's way. And it caused President Trump to act on it. And these are people who are Trump supporters, and they are constantly using the Bible and the rapture and all these things to make coalition moves, and it really abuses our military, it abuses our law, and it makes us look bad to the whole world. It makes us look horrible to the world. And this is something that's so important. And I can't go live on Instagram like I can here, at least, but that's why everything happens. So as an individual, that's why I did this all as an individual in the beginning, because I couldn't just come out with a public account, because everybody knows, you all know in my real life, being a public figure is something I've always wanted as an artist. So doing production work is not enough for me. I need to perform. I need to feel that. I can't just be on the sidelines. It drives me crazy. It drives me absolutely bonkers. And those who want me to be quiet, that's where they want me. And I appreciate you. I appreciate opportunity. But I keep coming to people for help and they don't help me. And whenever I reach out to police and call them and they never respond, and people come in undercover, it's because we all work together and everybody talks to everybody. So what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I refuse to be labeled as crazy when people try to mess with my mind. And I have training. And now, luckily, I've been able to reflect all this. It's been able to help law. And instead of trying to really call the cops on people, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not really afraid of these people. Even if they're tougher than me and can beat me up, I don't care. I'm not a tough guy. But really what it comes down to is all of that's ridiculous. And as long as I keep changing the law in the right way and keep pushing for that, well, then we're all protected. That's all that matters. So all I'm worried about now is what I used to erase, which is what the rabbit is. That's all the stuff I just used to erase, because I would put out a seed, I would put out a psychology to diffuse terrorism. I've been doing this for years. And it's also to train myself. I'm not an expert. I had to become one, but I'm not an expert, at least in the beginning, and I'm not God's gift to anything. I'm another terrified person who wants to see these things changed, and I don't need mental counseling. I need the world to change so it becomes a safer place. And that's all that's happening now. So I'm trying my best to also reflect all this, because it's still a challenge for me. I'm in it as well. I'm affected by all of it. This isn't something from the outside. I'm not just being an independent journalist. I'm just saying and using all these things to make things work and to get the job done. Like, I'm trying to look you all in the eye, and I have to look at my curtains up top to look forward into the camera. If I look at the camera, I'm looking too far up. If I look into my eyes, it looks like I'm reading something. I'm on my phone. It's to be authentic. Anyway, a lot of this is also important, reflects good behavior. So I really care. And this is why I'm not out here making police reports on people. And I say this because I want other people to think about these things. I want other people to think about their challenges, because one of the greatest hacks to our freedom is making frivolous reports. It ties up the hands of law enforcement. So that's also why I'm here. So I don't know what else to do but to take the rabbit public, but I also don't want to keep regurgitating the story. So I am a little lost in that, because I am flying by the seat of my pants. This isn't some constructed theory to take over the world on my part. I'm trying to coexist in this whole thing that's happening, and then make sure I'm adding to the truth of things, because I support real accounts. I support true identity online. I support companies and law enforcement working together to maintain Section 230 with bot protection, to protect human rights globally. So unless a true crime is happening, well, humans are not getting involved, so it doesn't overload the system, and it doesn't tie down law enforcement, so they can be more efficient and effective. And then also, our rights are protected. No one can say Big Brother's watching. That's right, technology is watching. So whether it's kids or adults, no matter what we're doing, we can be safe if we're being honest. And if we're doing manipulative things, well, then we can be flagged, and then a human can make a determination after that. And that's what I want to see. And so far, it's steadily happening. Looking forward to the dark web getting such a big awakening. Oh God, it's going to be great. Anyway, That's why I always say, God bless America, God bless the world, coexist. I have a lot of faith, even though I have my own, and it's from, all the health stuff. I mean, I'm so grateful. It's been over 10 years since I've had a grand mal. The other seizures I've had have just been from literally draining my body, or like over flushing for a colonoscopy or something, and then it's a pass out, not grand mal. So it takes a lot. I've done so much to work on my health, and I'm doing that for everybody else so I can continue to function. So that's what the last of it is, and unfortunately, because of this whole insurrection stuff, there's just so many people abusing religion like Hitler did, like Putin's doing, and they're still in support of these ideologies and this psychology. And this is what Psy-War is based on. This is what is terrifying me, and that's why I want to make this last bit here personal. And I keep saying last bit because I'm really trying to move forward, but I have to make sure people understand, because there's so many people out here still following the craziness. I mean, look at how many institutions are going to flip against me because their pastors are out here being rock stars, and they're willing to hurt people with disinformation. They're good people in the heart, but if they're willing to do these things, well then it's not fair to label me and push me out economically or try to blackball me somehow when I'm not the one out here poisoning people. I care about people. I care about your safety. I will not sell a job if I'm going to be negligent about it. Others will. I'm not being stupid. Others will do that and just call it insured. I don't. I'll take chances, but there's a point. The world isn't safe completely, so I'm not being ambiguous. There's a threshold to everything, and so I'm very concerned about these things. It's something I've worked on my whole life. I've spent time. I've hired lawyers. I have friends who know people who are legal, and I've really talked to people. So beyond professors, that doesn't make me special or smarter than anybody else. I'm just saying this is why I'm here doing these things, because this is a part of the work. I can't afford a lawyer to do this for me. I can't expect the government and the police to do all this for me. Not in America. It's my job to do. I have to be honest and forthcoming. And I took an oath to do so. So this is very, very challenging all the way around. But I'm doing the best I can to just constantly work on myself. And I apologize for ever being just... I've been learning to get a hold on things, and challenging all this head on is the best thing. Playing round robin, ideology bots, robots. If you're analyzing me right now, you want to know how to defeat nefarious humans? You play round robin with them playing hot potato, hiding behind the curtain. And eventually they will run out of options to lie, to stay behind the curtain. They will have to go away, be quiet, or expose who they are. It limits them to 3 options. So it just as a human, as I can limit you through query, through Q, you can limit humans. And you have the law to do that with. You just can't limit honest humans. But honest humans are not giving you a reason to flag them. So there's such a relationship there. It's such a protection. And those who are not on verified accounts, the bots still know, because certain behaviors will be of people who are looking to get a real message out versus those who are hiding. And human behaviors that are mapped will steadily improve the bots to be able to intercept, say, a human who's pretending to not tell the truth, to get the truth out and stuff like that, who can be very ambiguous and 2 or 3 times over, that kind of thing, the double, quadruple switcheroo. But now that's a different thing. But that's not for verified accounts. And the only time a non-verified account isn't criminal or somebody be hiding for an agenda is someone who is in a bad situation, So I'm saying this so that way I also do my responsibility to that part of the code. See, everything is part of it. So that's what I'm working on here, because I'm still almost finished with, I have a memorandum for Aaron ready to go for tomorrow, a little present for Mom, and Ricky, and everybody else, Dad. So that'll be kind of neat. It'll be the first set of footage I get to recover there. That's long overdue, but now the technology is just so much better. It's going to be so much easier to make the rec files. I wish I could make an NFT out of it already. That's coming soon, but that whole world is still developing a little more. So, and that's very big for business, because in order for me to bring this outside money in globally and to get global coverage into local markets, then I need crypto to work a certain way, and it has to support the dollar. That's the main thing. Anyway, that's the last thing I'm working on, and so with these posts, I should be able to get enough layers in, because I got to get that public channel going so I can get any responses needed, and then I'll be ready by New Year's, because I have the rest of the videos coming that are going back on YouTube, and the rules have changed, and some stuff can be posted, some stuff can't. I got to get some permissions yet for a few people and just double check. I had it uploaded once before, but now I need to put that on the TGX Productions channel. So anyway, hope you're all having a great day, and have a good New Year's. Talk to you later.